Alrighty, we are live. Welcome everybody. Okay, so we are going to do something just a tiny bit different. I need figure out how to do this without it fucking up. Okay, so today there is a really awesome thing that came out. There we go. Okay, I'm quickly going to, there we go. Cuck this. Okay, KanePixel's Backrooms, Frontier of Fear. Ooh. God, that looks fucking awesome. Okay, so this is a video by Wendigoon, and I've been dying to watch this, but A, it's 3 hours long, or sorry, 3 hours 21 minutes long, and B, I don't know how best to do this. You know, actually, this may not be a Minecraft stream. Like, I hate to tell you all this, but I just don't think I can do a Minecraft stream of this. I can do this. That's good. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. This is not a Minecraft stream any longer. I think that'll be fine. I will not be able to see your chats or anything because I believe I have to. Yeah, I can. If I swap over, it will fuck up. There we go. Okay. Wait, that's better. I split it off onto a new screen, and that fixes it. Okay, so I'm really eager to get into this because...
Careful, you no clip out of reality.
Whoops, wrong one. Forgot to change that.
Wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms, where it's nothing but stinky old moist carpet, madness,
Stinky
endless
mold
background noise,
carpet.
fluorescent lights, and maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell's going to.
Alright, so I'm doing this at 2 times speed. I don't know. That's a little much. That's a little much. Let's do 1.5.
If you're not careful and you no clip out of reality in wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, madness of mono yellow, endless background noise of fluorescent lights, and maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell is going to.
Because it sure as hell heard you.
This post was made in reply to this image on 4chan's paranormal board on May 12th of 2019. This concept of no clipping or falling out of reality into some in-between place stuck with a lot of people. What would you do if you fell into a scene?
Now, I'm curious. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but like, does the person who made this post know about it and like understand what's happened? Because there's no way in hell that the person who posted this, whenever this happened, there's no way they haven't noticed. There's a movie coming out in literally a month. Like, Like, do they know what this has become? Do they remember they are the one who made this? Like, imagine making the Backrooms post on X because I'm assuming this is X, in 2019, right? Just imagine making this as a one-off thing, and you pay it no mind anymore for the rest of, God, it's been like 7 almost years now, and you just don't, because this was made in like, fuck, I hate to do this. I really want to ask, but I'm gonna have to swap real quick. There we go. Because I don't want to see it. Okay, when was the famous Backrooms post on 4chan made? Okay, May 12th, 2019. I'm actually shocked the movie's not coming out on May 12th to celebrate that, but whatever. So in about 2 weeks, we will be celebrating the 7-year anniversary of this. So yeah, how does this person know this happened? Like, that it became as big a deal as it has become? Because there's no way you wouldn't know, right? Like, you just make this post and you're just like, you just forget. You forget you made it, you know? Like, all this backroom stuff. I don't know, man. Did I do that? I don't remember. Was I high when I wrote this post? Like, I don't remember. It's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm just like, is the original poster of this, you know, screaming out as much as they possibly can and trying to get people's attention? Do they demand attribution? Do they want to like have people know you know, they're the ones who did it? Like, do they want clout off this? Or are they just like, oh wow, I'm so happy this thing that I made is like popular? Like, I don't know. I'm just curious about, you know, what this is. Like, more about this post, not about the content of the post. The content of the post has been picked over to hell and back. But I'm genuinely curious. Does the person who made this know about how big it's gotten? Like, it's just so interesting. There's just so many meta-contextual angles to this. It's wild. Yeah, the location was found. The date was found a year or two ago. I guess, like, none of this is really new information anymore, is it? Like, everything about this is kind of known now.
Post was made in reply to this image on 4chan's paranormal board on May 12th of 2019. This concept of no-clicking or falling out of reality into some in-between place stuck with a lot of people. What would you do if you fell into a seemingly infinite maze of yellow walls hidden in the border beyond reality? This idea was so interesting that several online creators began to take their stab at it. The concept of the Backrooms has been adapted in a ton of places, from YouTube movies to video games to an entire wiki page that's elaborated on the lore and added levels and different creatures. A lot has been done with this concept, but there's one series that stands head and shoulders above the rest. And that, of course, is KanePixel's adaptation. KanePixel's, when he was only 15 years old, used 3D assets created in Blender and eventually live-action segments to tell a narrative within the setting of the Backrooms. And while Kane began with this...
When he was 15 years old? Like, okay, he started learning Blender at that age, but he didn't make his video until, like, late 2021 and released it in early 2022. Like, he was 17 by that point. At least say he was not fucking 15. Like, good God, that number keeps getting smaller and smaller every time I hear it.
This image and this post, like everyone else before him, the series quickly became its own thing. Stories of scientific experiments, corporate conspiracy, complex ecosystems, and violent life.
You were writing Transformers fanfics at 15? I mean, I was doing similar shit at 15 too, so I can't exactly laugh or, you know, poke fun at anybody. Like, I think a lot of us were doing, you know, small, private, mostly unrelated to normal stuff. Like, we were just in our own little worlds at 15. You know, that's fairly normal, I would say.
In the halls of the Backrooms itself, all within the setting of humanity's attempt to understand a cosmic nightmare. I covered Kane's series over 3 years ago now, and if you can't tell by, like, you know, the merch and stuff, I'm a pretty big fan. Not only
he's a merch
since
whore.
that video came out, Kane and I have become friends, and it's been really cool to watch the series grow while he grows as a creator. So you can imagine how elated I was when it was announced that KanePixel's would be making a movie within his Backrooms universe with A24. Kane, at 19 years old, is the youngest director in the studio's history and is setting up to have one of their greatest hits. And Kane was kind enough when they were shooting the film to invite me, my wife, and my editor to come see the set. And I can't talk about a lot of the specifics. As you could imagine, A24 is pretty hush-hush about it, but I will say we are in for something. I'm so excited for this movie. And
I can't wait until this is already open out in the wild, and it's like everybody's poured through all the footage and all the analysis has come out, and then we get to talk about behind the scenes stuff, because who cares? Like, it'll be, the moratorium on all this will be lifted by that point. Like, I want to know everything about the production of this movie. This is going to be a tour de force. It really will be. I get this feeling, you know, and I don't get this feeling often. I got this feeling when Dune was announced. God damn it, almost 5 years ago now. And it just hits you in a certain way, you know? Like, this is going to be amazing. You would do yourself a disservice by not watching it. Yeah, like, this is going to be awesome. And yeah, you love the video, liked his one on Blood Meridian. I listened to the Blood Meridian one. The Blood Meridian one was awesome. Yes, didn't feel bad about enjoying that book at such a young age. How young were you when you listened or watched or read or whatever Blood Meridian? That must have been a while ago.
And I'm sure you are too.
Damn.
But first things first, the YouTube series. Since my last video was over 3 years ago, there's a lot of uploads I haven't covered yet.
Last video.
Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give a brief recap of everything I covered in that first video in case you haven't seen it, but judging by the views on that video, a lot of you have.
9.8 mil. Wow.
Then we're going to talk about a timeline, my theories with the series itself, and then we're going to look at what we know about the movie and see how it ties in, as well as theorize about potential themes or plot lines for the film and the YouTube series moving forward. Then, probably a month after the film comes out, I'm going to make another video analyzing the film and how it ties into the web series. series. So
Good.
you can think of this video as a way to get
I
you
look
up to
forward to
speed
that.
and
I'll
theorize
react to
about the
that,
series
too.
so far and where it's going. Something that I truly believe is one of the coolest and scariest things I've ever seen out of YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about
Wendigoon.
KanePixel's
Yeah, I
Backrooms.
love Wendigoon.
I'm so excited to make this video,
Hello,
and I'm
Red
so
Dolly.
excited to see how far Kane has come. In that last video, we were talking about how crazy it was that someone this young created a series this cool.
Hello,
And now we're
Kellen.
talking about how crazy it is that a director this young is making a movie this cool. There's a lot to get into, as you can probably tell by the timestamp. In addition to a regular look at the plot-by-plot beats of the series, I want to talk about some of the themes and the hidden characters and Kane's other channel and stuff like that. This series is truly something special, and it's not every day that you get film quality content for free on YouTube. So before you watch this video, if you haven't already, Kane's channel will be linked in the description.
Oh my
Please
God,
check
go
it out
watch
for
Kane's
yourself.
channel,
I love
guys.
talking about it. I think it's fun to watch videos.
Don't
talking
ruin
about it,
your
but
own
nothing
viewing
beats
experience.
experiencing it for the first time the way it was intended. I should also add that despite being on set for a day and talking to Kane about the film, Kane hates me and thinks it's funny to see me suffer, so he hasn't told me anything
he
about the
does.
movie. I mean, obviously I was there and I saw some things that I can make inferences off of, but anytime I asked him for specifics, he just didn't answer.
Smiled.
So I'm theorizing it's not like I have some hidden insight or
You don't know
am
shit.
dropping clues for you to figure out. I'm guessing as well. Kane's the kind of guy who would only speak in riddles if he could. I also got to interview Kane for several hours while we were on set,
If
but
he
the
could.
footage of that is on set, and A24 will execute me if I show that to you before the film comes out. So for now, you're just going to hear audio from that
Okay.
interview.
Well, we'll
and
get
then in
to
the second
see,
video after the movie comes
a
out, you
Kane
can see the whole thing.
director-
This is a series I've been into
directorial,
for a long time, and I'm so
interview.
excited to talk about it and theorize
Probably
about
in
it
a
with
month
you
or two.
all. So if that sounds
Once the
interesting to
thing-
you,
once
stick
all
around
the
after
dust is
ad as
settled.
we talk about KanePixel's Backrooms, both the web series and now the movie.
And something else that can be really scary is taking care of yourself.
Oh
And
my
there seems to be
God,
so
you
many
know what's
different-
even scarier? A fucking ad in my videos.
Because if you into it.
And
But as
there we
always,
go.
AG1 for sponsoring the channel. Their link will be in the description, and we are now back to the video.
Thank you
We
to
are gonna go ahead
AG1
and get into
for
it, but as
AGing.
always, thank you for watching. So to get caught up, let's look at an abbreviated summary of everything I covered in my first Backrooms video. First video, found footage, features someone with a camera falling into the backrooms. According to the clipboard we see, this person's name is Kane. Not to be confused with Kane who made this series, although he might have died in the backrooms. How would we know? He stumbles into the yellow halls and fluorescent lights that will become familiar to us as the series goes on.
I'm
eventually
hoping he
coming
points
across
out the
remnants of
clacker
people who
board.
have been there before him. Things like clothes. Features
Like,
someone
This right here, July the 4th, 1991. I'm hoping he points out the clacker board, but I will if I will fill in gaps if Wendigoon misses gaps. I don't think he will, but there are two big gaps that most people have not pieced together that I have pieced together. And we'll get to that when and if and how we get to that. So don't worry about it. But yeah.
Kane who made this series. Series goes on, eventually coming across remnants of people who have been there before him. Things like clothes piled in a large room,
have been
or
here.
menacing writing on a wall that shows closed eyes and a window, along with writing like
Are there,
"Don't move."
is that supposed to be closed eyes? I always thought those were like jet black eyes, but I don't know. Those assets are really fucking grimy and low
Stay still.
quality.
And God closed his eyes. It's here that the cameraman encounters some kind of life form. The life form chases the cameraman until he comes to a large drop-off, at which point the life form attacks our cameraman and he drops the camera, which then seemingly falls back into reality,
Okay, he's
landing, as
gonna-
the description said,
he's
in
gonna skip it.
1996. The clapperboard at the beginning said that this footage was recorded, or at least started its recording, in 1991, meaning either when the cameraman went into the backrooms or when the camera fell out, it jumped 5 years. Our
Nope.
next video, the third
Nope. 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 Not at all when that happened. I'm just gonna go to it. Because I can show you exactly when that occurred. Whatever. KanePixel's. There we go. Found footage 1. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So the exact moment in found footage 1 when the poor bastard falls and he no clip, or not no clip, sorry. No clip is not the correct. Not the correct word. Okay, loud noises. Whoopsie doozy, loud noises. There we go. Okay, so he's running for his fucking life, right? Creatures behind him T-posing for dominance. Okay, cool. He's running, doesn't know where to go. He's in this weird repeating area. Runs into this corner room thing. I don't know. It's just where he happened to be. And then bam, sees a hole in the floor. Okay? Everything up to this point is 1991. Okay? Entering the back rooms does not teleport you through time. Exiting the back rooms does not teleport you through time. All instances of time travel in Kane series occur exclusively in the complex, and that is inside the Backrooms. And I'll point out a lot of instances of time travel if Wendy does not decide to do that. This instance right here, where he jumps down this hole right here is a portal to 1996. Okay, here's how we know. Okay, 3 major reasons why this is the portal. Okay, so if you ignore the escalating background music for just a moment, you can hear the creature off in the distance roaring and chirping and chiming and doing its thing, right? Okay, it's on him. He looks over his shoulder. Oh my God, there it is. He's got a half second to make a decision. Move, do something, right? Well, jump down the hole. It's the only sensible option. Even if he dies at the end of the hole, you know, you're fucked either way. At least you made a choice. But in the process of halfway falling down this hole, bam. Nowhere else in Found Footage 1 have we ever encountered this much static. Now, why would there be static on a VHS? Well, electromagnetic interference. Well, what do you know? It's almost like these null zones, or these no-clip points, are electromagnetically related. They are all utilizing some electromagnetic phenomena to bore a hole from one reality to another. You know, the normal standard universe to the Backrooms world. And this is how time travel in the Backrooms works. It's freaky like that. We don't have a full, we don't have a full grasp on how it functions yet, but electromagnetic phenomena seem to be the culprit. So that's what it is. So falls down the hole, huge static buffer that transfers very, very briefly to the VHS itself, and then nothing. Where's the monster? It was yelling and screaming just a half second ago. Unmistakable. Down the hole, silence. Now, I don't know about you, but that creature followed him to the point where it almost reminds you of a cheetah running down an antelope. It was just fast enough to keep up, but fast enough such that the kid, the main character here running, the cameraman, couldn't afford to slow down. He could twist and turn, go down corridors, go here, go there. But even once temporarily out of line of sight, the creature was on his ass. Never once while being pursued, did he lose the creature. Not once. And there it is, gone. It's not making a noise. It didn't follow down the hole with him, which, if you stop to think about it, why wouldn't it follow the hole? Why wouldn't it go down after him? It's capable of seeing and perceiving and tracking and thus hunting. It knows he went down the hole. It can't have a memory that short. It probably has a somewhat short memory, but it can't be that short. It has to have a reasonable level of tracking and, spatial awareness to be able to do this, right? So for all intents and purposes, if it can follow you around corners, it should be able to follow you down a hole, right? And yet, nothing. Where is this fucker? Why is it gone? It can't have just vanished. Or could it? Well, the answer is simply, he went 5 years into the future. Of course it's gone. It had no reason to hang around because Kane, the character, the main character's name in this particular found footage is Kane. He jumps down this hole and fucking vanishes into thin air. Meanwhile, the creature is like, well, I don't know where dinner went. Huh. And then it fucked off because of course it would. It would run off somewhere else to try and hunt new prey. It's an animal at the end of the day. Even if, as it will be theorized later on, I'm sure, even if it's just a gigantic bacterial colony, bacteria are still animals. They're still life forms. They're creatures. They're hunters and livers and eaters just like the rest of us. They're going to go where the food is. If the food is no longer there, they have no reason to hang around. It's just how it is. So that's the moment it happens. Right here. This is the first instance in the series of time travel. And so just keep this in mind. There are a lot of instances of time travel. We'll come to them when we come to them. And also, I don't know if Wendy is going to mention this or not. And this is so hard to notice, but it's here. It's there, okay? It's grainy as hell, but you can kind of see it. We will see this phenomena in closer detail later on. Kane's most recent video, which is sadly like a year and some change old now, Static Dead End. In Static Dead End, we're going to see this same phenomena, and that is the stretching phenomena. If you look at the floor is striated, meaning it's got stripes or bands, right? Striation like that is, and that was, that's the cameraman's shadow right here. That's his own shadow, so there's a light source behind him. And the floor texture, now Kane has since come out and said this was an accident, but it's one of those happy accidents that yielded amazing inspiration. This was a thing that would later on be used in the story to sort of justify why this happened. But we'll get to see this. So there's this striation effect, this striping, this stretching. Why? Because that is a byproduct of how these rooms generate, as we will later come on to find. And you can continue seeing this striping. It's very, very subtle, but it's there. And it kind of stops being striped or being stretched once you get to about this point where the actual light is. And then obviously you have this uncanny liminal photo, whatever. I'm not going to sit here pointing out every single little reference, but, you know, it's there. Anyway, that's important. This is more stuff that was seeded into the video that Kane is sort of setting up for later, you know, setting the pins up to knock them down later on. That's how every good storyteller does it, pretty much. So yeah, that's the first instance of time travel in the series. This is the first instance of that texture stretching phenomena that we see later on. And this is the first instance of somebody having, like, visible proof, you know, in this case it's a recording, of this whole place existing. You know, first time the public's been involved. Basically.
Test, dated in 1988, shows a company who we'll come to know as Async attempting to activate a portal. This is the third test of their magnetic distortion device. Nonetheless, it is unsuccessful for now. Well, our next video, First Contact, shows the experiment's first success, as during their sixth test of this device on October 17th of 1989, the portal works, opening a consistent doorway into the Backrooms, or as Async refers to it, the complex, meaning the organization's excursions into the Backrooms can begin. However, this in combination with unlisted videos we can find on the channel show us that at the same time, earthquakes occurred around Southern California, a place that we will come to find Async is located. So while they managed to open a doorway, it came at great cost to the people around them. This is especially true in the next video, Missing Persons. In Missing Persons, we see several missing persons posters, as after the events of First Contact in late 1989 and 1990, people began to go missing. This is seemingly because when Async caused a rift between our reality and the complex seems to have become less stable and more people are beginning to fall in, just like Kane did in found footage. In February of 1990, some of the first Async agents who investigate the complex come across the body of an individual
what is it?
seemingly
it's not Michael
fell into
Bolton.
the Backrooms. Oddly, his
Nicholas
body seems
Bolton. That's it. Yeah, that's Nicholas Bolton.
partially consumed.
It's hard to
By a
mistake.
strange growth or rot. There
Like, yeah, that's clearly Nicholas Bolton from the poster here. I don't know that you're going to be able to see it in the thumbnail. Yeah, right there. That's clearly Nicholas Bolton. Poor kid. Imagine no clipping in, having no fucking clue about any of this, and then wandering around until you die of malnutrition. You find a water source, but you don't find food. Like, ugh.
His body seems partially consumed and surrounded by a strange growth or rot. There are some nuances in these uploads I've already covered that I'm not touching on right now. Like, for example, at the end of Missing Persons, there's text on screen that says, if anyone blame him. And I talked about that a lot in my first Backrooms video, and we're going to incorporate it into the analysis later in this video. Just know that throughout these, there's sprinkling of information that implies some actor behind the scene or some greater plan at work. Our next video, informational video, dated to February 29th, 1990, which is odd because there was no February 29th in 1990. It wasn't a leap year, so it went from February 28th to March 1st. So I don't know what that's about. But it begins with what seems to be one of Async's typical excursions into
Now, I want to be the first to make this prediction. I predict the Backrooms movie will solve that mystery. Why is a leap year not a leap year? How is this possible? How is there a February 29th in a year in which there should be no February 29th? I'm betting we will end up seeing a solution to this problem, because that's like one of the oldest problems introduced in the series thus far that has had no visible any solution of any kind. I'm going to predict right now that answer will be given to us in some form in the movie itself. Now, obviously, I've not seen it, so I can't know, but...
the complex. We can even see structures they've begun to build, like on the other side of the threshold in the complex itself, they've built an operating station, and they have lines ran through the complex to keep track of where they've been. Well, during an informational video, our cameraman strays away from the group after he hears what seems to be a crowd of people speaking. Despite this noise, all he finds is a blank room, but when he turns back to the rest of his team, there's a flash, and they're gone. Not only are they gone, but the line they were following is completely gone as well. Our cameraman comes across some...
Now, that is the second instance of time travel in this series. Poor Marvin. Or not Marvin. Poor Peter. That was his name. Now, this is a much more interesting kind of variation, because Peter Tench got shot only about maybe 2.5 to 3 months forward, whereas Kane got shot a whole 5 years forward. So I don't know if the duration is significant. Peter being shot only 2 months forward into the future versus Kane being shot 5 years into the future. Is there a rhyme or a reason to how much time forward somebody is shunted? Who knows? This may not be a question that has an answer. It may be an arbitrary thing that Kane just plucked out of thin air. Hey, this person got sent so many years ahead. This person got sent so many years forward, back, whatever. That's not... It is a question. It is a concern, but it doesn't appear to be a big one yet. So we'll see.
Strange sightings. Like these
shunted.
black pieces on the...
To be shunted means to be pushed forward against, through a powerful force. To be pushed forward into something from something else. So in this case, shunted forward into the future. Shunted from the present into the future suddenly against your will. That's what that means. Shunted from one dimension into another via phenomena you do not understand and cannot predict and do not yet know of until suddenly you're the victim of it. That's what that means. And yeah, that absolutely applies.
The ground that could be burnt clothes.
Depends on how long they're in that static state. Maybe. That's actually a really good point, Larry, because Kane was falling and 9.8 meters per second. To be fair, you don't immediately hit terminal velocity or anything. But when you fall, even though that hole in the ground in Found Footage 1 was only maybe 10 feet at most deep, yeah, you fall pretty quickly, even though you're not yet at terminal velocity the moment you start falling. It takes a few minutes to get to terminal velocity. But that's still really, really fast, whereas Peter walked headfirst into that, hung out in that little pocket, and was like, guys, you hear this? Guys. And then, pow. Only a few months forward. Is it simply motion or random? It's got to be random to a degree.
He comes across weird wallpaper that seems stretched in some areas, a wheelbarrow, or what seems to be the flat image of the side of a house. He gets back to the operating station.
Oh, and also, this is another thing. There was clear breathing that was not Peter's breathing on the other side of these doors. Because I think these are actually functioning doors. It's hard to tell because this is clearly a wall mural. This is all painted, or generated, I should say, by the complex. But these doors have actual glass on them. They look like they're real openable doors. They're just at a weird angle. But, weird angles and weird proportions is a common theme we're going to see in the Backrooms. These wheelbarrows are are hugely indicative of that phenomena. Weird, skewed stuff that is just odd for the sake of being odd. The more it remembers, the less it does. Remember that phrase. That's a big important thing. But anyway, yeah, what the fuck was breathing beyond this point? Because it looks like there is a way to proceed beyond this point. These doors do look like they're reasonably openable. But Peter was scared out of his fucking mind, and who can blame him? So he turns tail and runs. But in this section, there was clearly something. I want to pull that up just to be absolutely certain. Where are you? Informational video. So yeah, when he gets up to this point, and you can even hear it because he's halfway in to this little dark pocket of room where the forest the forest room, or the jungle room, if you want to call it that, the farm room, I don't know. But yeah, even halfway in, he's just made maybe 10 steps into this room, you can hear it. And it's not his own breathing. Like, you can hear the of his own breathing because he's using a respirator and all the gas mask and all that. But, oh yeah, more stretching. That's another thing. More of this stretching phenomenon right here. Okay, that's his own breathing. And then he hears and notices the wall to his left. There it is. Hear that? That's Peter. And then you hear a far off in the distance. That is not Peter. That was not human. Whatever that was not normal.
In the complex and finds it's manned by.
So yeah, there are some really wild things going on here. Ambient noise generated from the cosmos of the backrooms or another entity. It's saying from the left set of doors. It's possible. It could be that those two sets of doors both lead to the exact same spot, right? If these doors are both openable, I don't think it matters. I think the space beyond both of these doors is the same. And whatever the hell this is, it's just directly right beyond this. It's really close. And in a weird sort of way, my personal theory is that Peter got off very lucky because he was wearing his hazmat suit. But we'll touch back on that very shortly. Maybe.
By no one. And when he speaks, alarms begin to sound.
Depends on how
we
long
don't know
it takes Wendy to catch up to it.
But we will later. Our next video autopsy report occurs right after the events of the previous video, Missing Persons.
Yep.
And this is an autopsy of the body that was found in the complex. It's found that the body is consumed by Hey Bacillus, an otherwise unremarkable bacteria.
Hey Bacillus, how are you?
But in the complex, it seems to have mutated, engulfing the body and preventing some parts from decaying, while other parts show advanced states of decay. The medical examiner doesn't seem to have an explanation for this, and then refers to someone listening as Ivan Beck, a name that will become more and more important as the series goes on. Our next video, Motion Detected, occurs on March.
Also, that is just the freakiest fucking, like, the first time, like, I'm immune to it now, but when I first saw this back in 22, oh god, I just, it turned my stomach seeing this. Like, whew, that is such a fantastically grotesque render. Like, Jesus Christ.
As Ivan Beck, a name that will become more and more important.
Kidney steak anybody, or kidney pie anybody?
On March 5th of 1990. Just
Don't smoke in the
threshold or
portal. That was a kidney, not a lung. Come on now.
That Async has created, researchers are setting up cameras to monitor the space. Alarmingly, while the room is unmanned, they pick up this image. An image of what appears to be either flailing black legs or tendrils of some kind peering at their camera from around the corner.
I think that was one of these lanky bacterial colonies. I think it had somehow been in, like, prowl mode or hunt mode or something like that, and it was because he's brushing over Motion Detected, and I remember when Motion Detected came out, Kane said in a Discord call that the Motion Detected thing, this bastard,
an image of what appears to be either flailing.
This is setting up something big that will have a payoff much, much later. And before the flailing, a lot of people have said this looks like the legs of something. I think this is a bacteria creature, and it's just so low res and so blurry and muddled, it's hard to tell. I have a feeling we will get our answer one way or another. But that right before we see this on camera, we hear something off in the distance huffing and puffing and kind of growling. And we know the bacteria creatures can make noise, and they can make human-like noise. So I think this thing was hunting. And it just happened to be kind of prowling around, and then it noticed the signs of people or of something having been in the area, but not seeing any definitive reason to stick around, it didn't. And so it left, and they caught it on camera.
Black legs or tendrils of some kind.
I think they're tendrils.
Camera from around the corner.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind the creature we saw in found footage was in 1991, and then the camera recovered in 1996.
Yeah. Well, it was recovered probably very shortly after it ended up landing in 1996. But it's so hard to know what the chain of custody of these found footage tapes are, because the found footages are really cool for what they're showing, what they're displaying. But then it also begs the question of who's watching and how do they get a hold of these tapes? What is the chain of custody of these particular items? Because Kane's camera lands on some random lawn, just plonk, there it goes. Madison's camera, we don't even know how Madison's camera got out of the fucking place in the first place, because the camera, or rather Madison, gets caught up in the green lights. Obviously, we'll touch on that here shortly. And then Ravi's, poor Ravi, he probably died of malnutrition. So, like, his camera had to have been in the Red City. We suspect he was in the Red City when he died. So, I don't know, man.
Since this is in 1990, it seems that up until this
point... How many bacteria creatures are there? If this is a thing, I'm going to say 4. The one that stalked Kane, the one that stalked Madison, the one that showed up in found footage, in motion detected, and then the one that'll likely show up in the movie. So 4, I want to say.
Async didn't know that there were other creatures in there, so this is likely the first sign they've had that they're not alone. The next video, Prototype, shows us footage from May 10th of 1982, over 7 years before Async would successfully open the threshold into the complex. Here we see their early attempts at this technology, as at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, they were experimenting with sending things into the complex. Now, it's unlikely at this time that Async knew where these things were going, if Async was even formed to this point, but whoever was performing these experiments, the only credit we get is the supervisor, Philip R. Heyman. Philip may have thought they were simply teleporting things, maybe to a different location in our reality, and little did they know that they were likely sending things into the complex. Pitfalls occurs on May 6th of 1990, so a couple months ahead of the other excursions we've seen Async perform in the complex. It begins as a typical excursion until they come across a room covered in a series of deep pits. While walking across the pits, our cameraman trips into one of the holes. Simultaneous to this, another researcher continues across the structure, making it to a door on the far side. We don't see what's on the other side of the door, but whatever it is, they begin to yell for a camera, asking them to get the footage quickly.
So the reason, and this is something people still don't fully understand, but like it's pretty obvious why Marvin fell into the pitfalls. Let me show it. So we get a pretty solid look at the pitfall area. There we are, right here. Perfect spot. As they are scanning over the area, so you can notice there are at least 2. One right here and one right here. And funny enough, Marvin even zooms in on this one, or at least he's close enough to kind of get a look at it. The rest of these are all flush, meaning whatever structural things exist underneath these floorboards, or these sections of floor, they are reasonably sound and not immediately in danger of collapsing. But what ends up happening is Marvin, at George's behest, George walks across. George takes this path up here. He goes up this central portion and then cuts around over here, bypassing both of these faulty points. You can kind of tell that there's a sort of under lip here. You can see it better. Yeah, see, that's George. He sees the green lights phenomenon beyond this door. It's generating new corridor segments. So yeah, George bypasses the faulty, dangerous parts. But Marvin, I guess he forgets. And he steps on this board. And it's as thin as a board. And you got to remember, these guys are all wearing these heavy hazmat suits. They've got a tank of some kind. They've got respirator. They're in a clunky plastic, secondary skin on them. And it makes sense that they're not really the greatest at, being reasonably coordinated and composed with all that heavier weight and that extra thick stuff. And so Marvin walks down this plank, and it shifts to his right, and so he overcorrects and goes to his left, and he falls. He overshoots, and it tumbles him down right here. Oh yeah, like right there. You can see that lip right there. It's like blatantly obvious. And I guess I was wrong. This is not a lip over here. There was another lip over. I think that's that one over there. It's hard to tell because they're not like right up on top of it like that specific section. Marvin, you got to get over here, Marvin. And then for some reason, he just decides to walk over this way. I don't know. Whatever. And so, yeah, so he steps on this. Whoa! Bam. And down he goes.
Despite having one of their people fall into the hole moments before. Whatever's on the other side of this door must be important. Our cameraman, who we'll later learn is named Marvin, hears what sounds like someone calling out to him. He investigates and comes across a structure unlike any async seen. While exploring the complex and coming through a tunnel, he seems to step out onto a red-lit suburban street, complete with houses, trees,
This is
and a
such
dark
a
sky.
cool
He steps into the house he hears someone
idea.
calling from, only to find a
Red
blue
City.
room with reversed road signs. Walking down a hallway leads him to a room where it seems someone had been living for some time.
So this is the third instance of time travel. This is a very important one because it's reverse time travel. Every instance of time travel up to this point has been forward time travel. This is backward time travel. That's a big fucking deal. And I want to say it starts right about here. So Marvin's able to get reasonably consistent radio communications with the people up top. He's separated temporarily, but, you know, he's exploring this voice because he thinks he's going to rescue somebody.
I think I'm losing you. Just stand.
I think I'm
Stand
losing
by.
you. Bam! Saw that. You saw that. Yet another visual distortion as a result of electromagnetic phenomena.
Right.
Now, I don't think this version of the video is the version that was put out on release. We'll see. I want to see if it's still in here or not. Shit. Okay, it got cut out. That's very unfortunate. I think there was a copyright problem with this. So, like, right here, so notice how it goes from Marvin's walking along, and they cut straight forward to, bam, he's going through the doorway into this next room. Well, in the original release of Pitfalls, this was not a cut. This was just Marvin walking straight forward through this doorway, and he'd get through here. But in the halfway point, he hears a radio transmission. It's a radio broadcast like you would get on any normal radio station, and it's broadcasting music. It's from a song in 2007. This is a song that shouldn't exist in 1990. It won't be made for another 17 years. This is an instance of a song from a radio broadcast that does not yet exist. But Marvin happened to pass through this area just at the right moment to pick it up. Now that's freaky. Probably why it froze for a few seconds until you rewound. Oh, I don't know what you're referring to, but yeah. Trying and failing to give you ads.
Chair, sleeping bag, and backpack on the floor. The walls.
You guys got to invest in uBlock Origin. I don't know what other, and Brave Browser, uBlock Origin. That shit whacks all the ads.
Seem more decayed than the rest. A pile of numbers on the ground seem to be taken off of the other houses from the street.
Yeah.
Following the sound, Marvin sees that it is not someone calling for help, but instead the same life form or same kind of life form that we saw in the original found footage. A massive creature composed of thin stilts.
Also, what's really fucking like scary is, I think I could show it better in the original because I don't know if Wendy's changing, altering, messing with it. So from where Marvin's standing, when he comes out from behind this corner, comes out to see this guy. This guy is about 7 or 8 yards away. Marvin zooms in here real quick after noticing, oh, that's not a person. Oh God, that's not a person. And this thing immediately, with the quickness, immediately it's like, I'm coming for you. And it instantly starts taking off towards him. Now this begs an interesting question. This thing is instantly darting toward him, and Marvin is like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, and he, of course, runs off. So he's... There we go. So he immediately bolts and tries to outrun the creature. Now again, Marvin's wearing all this heavy equipment. And also, the spot where Marvin is headed to is just underneath this little lip in the floor, and then it's literally just a right hand turn, and that's it. And that's like the hole in the wall Marvin fell out of. This is not a long distance, okay? He just goes down this one-way street, door on the left, bam. Like, this creature was coming up on him fast. And yet, despite how loudly the creature is yelling, and Marvin's hauling ass as much as he can here, but despite this situation, and he even looks back, right? Where's Mr. Sticks? Where the fuck is he? Do you see him? Because I don't. Now, admittedly, we don't get too many frames of seeing, this way. But, like, he's not exiting the house. He's not out here. Where's Mr. Sticks? He was hot on his trail. Why has he suddenly failed to follow? We've seen these things be doggedly good at tracking down their prey. Why is Marvin the exception? Marvin does not get attacked. He doesn't get jumped. Because again, this thing is bolting toward him. It's moving fast. It should have overtaken him because he's got that heavy gear on. And yet, at no point does Marvin ever come into contact with Mr. Sticks again. He even takes the time to squeeze himself under this little low-hanging threshold, or this incredibly tiny hallway. He even looks back again. Nothing. And it stopped yelling. It's given up pursuing him. Here's why. And this is another sticking point, another thing that people have not glommed onto. These things
Begins to charge him.
They hunt by smelling the CO2 coming out of your mouth. Because when you're running, you're huffing and puffing. What is that? You're leaving a trail. You're quite literally like a slug, leaving a slime trail wherever you go. But this time it's a colorless, odorless gas, except they can smell it. And that's how the bacteria creatures hunt. They smell the CO2 on your breath. No, not through the suit. That's the point. Not through the suit. They know where the people are. They can visually see you. But if you break line of sight and there's no smell, they'll give up hunting you because they have nothing to go on. And that's why it couldn't find Marvin. Marvin's path, in essence, is it's a fucking line. Like, Marvin falls down in this room, sees a corridor here, sees a corridor here, goes on off. Here's the neighborhood. Here's the house at the very end of the neighborhood. He makes a giant L shape, right? Like, here's where he runs into Mr. Sticks, way, way, way over here somewhere. Like, here's the hallway where Mr. Sticks lives, right? Like, he just makes a gigantic L-shaped move, right? And then he doubles back and runs, and then bam. And then he hides out up here in this little alcove where he fell down. And you mean to tell me these big bacteria fuckers can dog people through twists and turns, and it can't follow a simple L shape? And the answer is no, it can't, because it couldn't smell Marvin. Marvin could not be tracked through smell, which was the number one way that these things hunt.
And runs away, making his way back to the hole that he found.
Right. These hazmat suits, it saved Peter's life, because I guarantee you if Peter had wandered around after getting separated from his team, jettisoned 2 months into the future, I guarantee you he would have run into a bacteria creature. But he didn't. Hazmat suit. Marvin was found, or rather ran into, a bacteria creature, immediately lost it. Why? Hazmat suit. But Kane, Ravi, and Madison practically get run down to their deaths. No hazmat suit.
Fell
That's
through,
how.
he is then rescued by the rest of his team. Pitfalls makes async and us, the viewer, ask a lot of questions. Just
So,
when we
yeah.
were wrapping our heads
Crazy
around things
shit.
like the backrooms being composed of these office spaces, of yellow wallpaper and fluorescent lights, suddenly it can now mimic a neighborhood. And this makeshift camp we saw, was that another victim who just fell into the space, or was this someone who was prepared, hence the backpack and sleeping bag? And why was the life form seemingly mimicking human speech, calling out,
Yeah.
hoping someone would come to it? Our next video report occurs shortly thereafter, as on May 6th of 1990, Async reviews the footage that was taken by Marvin in Pitfalls. From their reaction, it seems they weren't aware these creatures can exist in the complex either. So they board up the entryway to the complex and for the time being, halt exploration. Our next video presentation occurs only a couple of days later on May 8th of 1990. It begins with the video presentation that Async has prepared for the Department of Energy. It seems Async is attempting to provide reason for their endeavors and future funding. Obviously, the discovery of the complex would give way to great scientific interest. But to get government interest, Async is marketing the complex as a space for storage and housing, which is one of the funniest details of the series to me, that Async has found this
We're gonna hide you in the
superstructure
back
that's
rooms.
theoretically
Don't
endless,
worry,
and they have
it's
no
safe.
idea where it came from. And now they need to get government dollars, so hey, what if we took a bunch of people and stuff and we just put it in there? No, we don't know what it is or where it came from or anything about it yet, and there might be things in there that wouldn't kill us. But, hear me out. Free housing. No, not free to them. That would be absurd. Free to us because we don't have to build it. Async even provides models for residential areas, transportation, commercial spaces. But in the
I
midst
love
of
the
Department of
idea,
Energy's
but
visit,
it's
something
such a
happens.
shit show.
Alarms begin to blare, and in the entryway to the complex, the yellow-suited Async researcher from Informational Video is standing in the threshold. This is the same researcher whose camera we were following in Informational Video. And in that footage, we saw that.
Yeah, that was Peter Tench returning. Doesn't CO2 still get expelled with a hazmat suit? I don't know. I guess that depends on the style of hazmat suit. It may not all be expelled at once, like as you run around, you're breathing and huffing and puffing as you're running. Well, the gas exiting from your mouth or your nose is immediately right there. But if the hazmat suit waits a bit, waits a little while, well then you're not immediately getting that trail type effect. I don't know. It depends on the make and model of said hazmat suit. I know they're wearing gas masks underneath those things. So I'm really not sure how effective or how impactful that gas mask is that they're wearing. It's hard to say.
Couldn't have been gone more than a couple hours. But given the dates, he's been gone over 2 months. The rest of his team must have assumed that he became lost in the complex. While to him, he simply got separated and then found his way back to the front door. We knew that time jumps were possible because of the camera from found footage, but we didn't know they were possible while you were standing in the complex itself and while the threshold was open. And in an unlisted video posted to a different channel called Laura Harris that we can find by looking in the description for presentation, we see an episode of The Simpsons that aired in 1991 that is interrupted by a commercial from the year 2000.
Another instance of time travel, a stomach medicine from, I believe, some Spanish-speaking country, broadcast at a time where this shouldn't have been broadcastable. Could just be an assortment of all of our smells and not just CO2. That's also possible. That is conjecture, but it makes sense that the hazmat suit is a good insulator. Enough to foil their hunting skills.
Before going back to the Simpsons broadcast. I'm assuming they don't get cable in the back rooms, so that would mean that there's time distortions happening for other people in our reality, most likely because of the pokes Async is making into the complex's structure. So while for now we've only seen the complex do weird time jumps for people that interact with them, seemingly it's bleeding out to the rest of the world. That's a basic recap of, again, everything I covered in the first video, and again, there's a lot of nuance I didn't mention here. Further mentions to Ivan Beck or secret messages we see or things we only see a quick glimpse of.
Farting.
But this was just to make sure we're all caught up to speed before I dive into the new episodes. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the new stuff we have, beginning with Found Footage 2. The description for Found Footage 2 says it was recorded on August 19th of 1995. Now, aside from the camera from Found Footage 1 being recovered in 1996, this is the furthest forward event we have on the timeline. It's important to keep in mind here that everything we know about Async up until this point ends in 1990, and what we're about to view as a complex 5 years after their meddling. It won't be super important for now, but it'll matter for the end analysis. Found Footage 2 opens in our reality, as a girl who is not named is recording a weird thing she's
We
found,
call her
to say the
Madison
least.
because that's the
She's placed
actress's
blue tape
name.
around the ground of what we can identify as a null zone. It's a term async uses to describe places in the complex that seem to have a connection to a place in our reality, or in other words, one of these bridges where people can fall through. Well, the girl from Found Footage 2 found one of these and has been experimenting with it. She has the area taped off on the floor in blue tape, and she records as she pours wood chips onto the flour that seemingly disappear. She does the same with baseball before she takes a tape measure to try to see how far down the space goes. And I know it's just a small thing comparatively, but I don't want my analytical nature with this video to pull away from how breathtaking some of Kane's visuals are. I think one of the most striking things that sticks out to people when they first see Kane's work is the authenticity of it. I mean, he makes the majority of these scenes in blend.
Do you think the bacteria feeds off the smells? No, it does not. That's not how that works. Bacteria are like any other cell. They have to take in nutrients. Smells are not nutritious. You cannot subsist off of smells or gas. That's not how it works. Hold on, I gotta let the whiny little cat out. Okay, go. Oh, I knew she wouldn't stay satisfied or sleepy enough to stick around and just go to sleep on my bed. She always got to get up. Anyway.
But he does them with such dedication to the camera's movement and the space around them, and then hiding anything that needs to be hidden with the old school analog VHS filter, that regardless of how many times you see it, it's hard to believe it's not real.
So
and
good.
Here, where he has a real space with real actors, it's hard to believe some of the effects he manages to pull off. Like as the girl begins to push the roller through the floor, and it just disappears. However, as she does this, the tape measure begins to vibrate, and she, as well as the camera, is pulled in. She drops to the floor of the backrooms along with all of the other things that she has dropped in her experiments. She falls into the backrooms completely unaware of where she has just placed herself, just like our cameraman from the first found footage. Confused and scared, as one would be, she begins to make her way through the complex.
I love the style of found footage 2, having a more modern house feel to it instead of the stark yellow pseudo office space in found footage 1. I really like that. That was such a great variation on the standard up till this point. That was genius. I kind of want to see more backrooms in that style. You know what I mean? Like that modern house, McMansion as we used to call them. Like I like that. I wanna see a whole ass place like that.
Something I don't think I emphasized enough in my first video, but seems to be more pressing now, is how some of the spaces that appear in the complex seem reminiscent. Like for example, one room the girl comes to seems similar to the rest of the backrooms, but slightly different. The walls are basic beige. The rectangular lights of the rest of the complex have been swapped for circular ones. There's a power outlet on the wall, a corner that seems to be a kitchen countertop, and a hood for a stove that isn't there. She goes to the next room over and turns on a light to see what is reminiscent of a kitchen.
Holy shit. The chairs here legitimately jump scared me. I don't know why, but it did. It was for the briefest instance. It's never jump scared me since, but that was obviously on that first viewing back in mid 2022, late 2022, whenever this episode came out. And yeah, like just something about seeing that shit there, and it's all, the chairs are just so lanky and weird. I just didn't know what to think.
Kitchen table, but the chairs and table itself are far too tall. The proportions don't make sense. The space itself is still
Do the bacteria sit in the tall chairs?
Familiar about
I
it.
guess.
A table with chairs next to the room where you would have a kitchen countertop in place of.
Funny enough, those chairs are actually the right proportions for the bacteria.
The stove should go. With the similarities in there. Other than that, the room is bare. But given other structures we've seen in the complex, like road signs and trees and houses, there seems to be an order here that's reminiscent of something human. She continues and comes across a very large space,
It's just
dominated by a large column and a couch. The floor in the middle of the room seems to be sunken, but other than that, again, the room is
It's just an exceptionally squashed couch.
bare. Of course, she's shocked by these findings. Even if she thinks that the structure itself could be natural, this is far too large and too odd for anything that could be beneath the basement of her house. However, things change when she comes to the next room, populated by a door and a large hole in the floor. The hole in the floor looks like it was broken away, with steel supports jutting out on either side. She peers through the keyhole of the door and sees that the space changes. Turns into white walls and wooden floors leading up to a staircase with more doors adorning it. She continues in the other direction and comes across more of the same. Same walls,
Would totally
the same
nap on
lines,
that couch,
hallways
yes.
that seemingly lead to nothing. Just more maze. She comes to one hallway that seems to ascend. However, it ascends in a way that doesn't make sense. It's almost like a position stairs should be in, but instead, it's just a hallway pointed up. She presses through until she comes across a very large space, something that would seem at home inside of a large hospital or shopping mall. But again,
And there are splotches in front of whatever this light source is. We assume it's a flat panel of glass somewhere up here. And there are splotches of, we presume, bacteria growth. It could be blood. We really don't know. And there's a light source shining in from this way. And so projecting whatever, and it has to be really thick. Like, I don't think it could just be blood splotches. It would need to be mud or bacteria. It would have to be thick, like moss almost. But this is clearly a splatter pattern. So that's not good.
Yeah, aside from the structure itself, everything is naked. Tiles from the ceiling have fallen to the floor. What lights there are...
And I noticed this a long time ago, but it's not something that like immediately jumped to my mind. But now that I'm looking at it, yeah, this is important. That's a crack. That is a stress fracture. Not something impacting it, not something, nobody took a hammer to this. This is, hey, the weight of everything above it is not evenly distributed, and so this is giving way. This is a stress fracture. I don't know if that implies something about the complex. I don't know if there is a disaster or a big thing or a happening that occurred at some point prior to now, and the stress fracture is a byproduct of that. I don't know. But there are a lot of ceiling tiles displaced, and there are a lot of, there's that splatter pattern that I mentioned up at the ceiling up there.
There are
Something happened here.
Black rot.
It's big.
Or mold that seems to be growing.
Oh yeah, and there is mold up in this area, a slight kind of breaking or damaging here.
Growing around the brim of everything. Whatever space this was, it seems to be decaying. It's also worth pointing out that the rot or mold here seems very similar to the rot that was around the body in missing persons.
Yes.
Perhaps this mutated bacteria.
Oh yeah, you can see it right there actually. Huh. Yeah, that's like a flat plane of glass. That has to be a window.
Yeah, it's finding a home on the walls throughout the complex.
Oh yeah, wow. She actually. Oh yeah, no. That is an unironic. That is a bacteria creature. There was another bacteria creature here, apart from the one in the car that we're about to see. There was a thing here, so she could have gotten jumped twice.
Complex. She comes to one room where it seems the space above her is lit in a green hue, and then she turns the corner to find something out of place. A car crashed into the wall. Now this is the first sign of life she's seen so far. And it not only seems strange that someone would have a car in the complex, but also
what a
just
freaky
run into the
sight
wall
to
for no reason. Well, this links back to another unlisted video on Kane's channel. In an unlisted video whose title seems to be a series of random numbers, which it's not random numbers, but I'll talk about what the numbers are later. Pretend they're random.
It's the ISBN for the yellow wallpaper. It's not that funny. It's not that deep. This I do kind of take umbrage with this. I'll explain here in a minute.
We see footage from along a highway where it seems a car fell through a null zone. Now this unlisted video was posted before found footage too. At the time, we didn't know what that meant, but it seems here we find what happened to that car. Someone was driving on the highway when suddenly their car fell and they were in the back rooms.
Which one of them?
Of course, the car was going 80 miles an hour.
That one. Yeah, okay. That is not the same car. This is by word of God. Kane himself has said the car that you saw no clip is not this car. Very sad. I do take umbrage with that. It should be the same car. Kane obviously has the final say in anything like this, but I'm just going to say, story-wise, that would have been a wonderful payoff. This not being the same car feels kind of... It breaks the Doofenshmirtz principle. I hate to say. It really does. And I know, haha, Doofenshmirtz, but no, seriously. It violates the Doofenshmirtz principle. If I had a nickel for every time such and such happened, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So you mean to tell me that not only do we see car A in this highway footage slip into the back rooms,
highway when suddenly their car fell and they were in the back rooms. Of course, the car was going 80 miles an hour.
So not only does this car no clip in, but this car no clipped in. How many cars no clipped into the back rooms? Why do we not find 100 of these? And it doesn't look like the same car, no, but it should be the same car from a storytelling perspective. It violates the Doofenshmirtz principle. You have shown me something, but that payoff is not that something. And so you've already asked me to believe that a car crash has occurred in the back rooms. Oh, that's an interesting concept. It could, that could work. But now you're asking me to believe that 2 cars have ended up in the back rooms? Obviously this one, this is incontrovertible. But then,
Someone was driving on the highway.
This one also no clips.
Suddenly their car fell, and they were in the back rooms. Of course, the car was going 80 miles an hour, so there was no time for them to realize what was happening and stop before...
Yeah, like, again, if I had a nickel for every time a car ended up in the back rooms, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. It violates the Doofenshmirtz principle. It's very strange. If you're asking me to believe one weird thing, but it's reasonably within the bounds of the series or the bounds of the, you know, the parameters of your story, that's fine. Pushing the envelope is a great thing to do in storytelling. But there is such a thing as pushing it too far.
Before they steered straight into the wall.
So
for one, this is a terrifying reality. You're on your way home from work one day, and then suddenly you're in the complex, and you're now in an 80-mile-an-hour car crash. But it also changes our understanding of null zones, because up until this point, we've just assumed that null zones are spaces that could be used as gateways, if one understands them. But if that were the case on a busy highway, then you would have hundreds of cars falling through every day. So there are some null zones that can appear just as quickly as they disappear. More speculation for later, but for now, the girl with the camera investigates the car. She comes up to the car. It seems that the wreck is old. At one point after the crash, there was a fire. The ground around the car scorched, and the car itself long since destroyed. However,
yeah, you can see how, and I like this touch, this bit of detail. You can see how this place was on fire. And speaking of fires, this is a question that's been asked in Kane's Discord. And Kane himself has answered it. You know, what would happen?
The car scorched.
There we go.
Investigates the car. She comes up to the car.
What would happen if a fire broke out in the back rooms? Kane has said, well, it would burn, because it's a fire, and then it would go until it naturally snuffs itself out, because no fire burns forever. And then eventually the complex would heal the affected areas, meaning this is not permanent damage. And I think we are already beginning to see some of it get repaired. But then again, I don't know. Maybe it hadn't had enough time for that to happen. It's still something.
The wreck is old. At one point after the crash, there was a fire. The ground around the car scorched, and the car itself long since destroyed. However, considering there's no one in the car and the handprints nearby, it seems whoever...
And that bloody, formerly bloody, I guess it's dried blood now, handprint on the wall, that is some creepy shit. Excellent, excellent environmental storytelling.
They found their way out of the car and entered a nearby room. Following their tracks, the girl steps in, and once again, we see a space that feels reminiscent. Soft lights and blue walls.
Oh yeah, fun fact, this is modeled after Kane's childhood home. Unironically, this is actually a space from Kane's childhood home recreated from his memory. Also, you can see this gigantic pool of blood both there, and there was another, I think that's like a footprint slash, because you know whoever was involved with that crash, they were really messed up by it. So you see some blood here, big pool of it here, another print there, and it's going off that way. There was another one over here. Well, maybe not. Maybe that was just shadow artifacting.
Feels reminiscent. Soft lights and blue walls.
But
wooden
still.
floors and a banister separating a slightly higher elevated ground.
Yeah, that's a lot of blood.
Feels like this could be the inside of a house. And as a matter of fact, it is the inside of a house. Kane's house. During one of my live streams with Kane, he said that this is the floor plan of his childhood home.
This is where I grew up.
This is the house you grew up in?
Yeah.
Was that your bedroom over here, the infected one?
Yeah, this is how it looked.
I mean, is this like in the blue?
What a great touch.
Is this actually the room you grew up in?
This is me.
That's you over in the corner?
Yeah.
Oh no, there's more.
No, this is, this room.
So that explains why the space makes sense. I mean, in the real world, it is a house that people lived in. So why is it here? I mean, if the complex is just randomly printing walls and spaces, why do so many of them make sense? Or alternatively, why do some of them try to make sense? She continues through following the marks of the car crash victim, eventually leading her to a dark room within this makeshift house.
Oh man, another gigantic streak of blood.
She turns a light on her camera, which bathes the room in a green glow, and comes to a room that seems infested with rot. Black vines cling to the ceilings and hang down in these great shapes. If what we saw in Missing Person stands true, and when people die, this bacteria grows around them, then here we can assume that the victim of this car wreck crawled into this room and then succumbed to their injuries. And in their death, this growth found them, growing around them and then sealing the room in this black rot. While looking around this room, her eye is caught by a picture hanging on the wall. This picture is a painting by George Brim, specifically the cover he did for Women's Home Companion in September of 1916. However, this image has seen a lot of proliferation in homes as just being a classic Americana piece of art. The significance of it to the space by George Black.
I don't think he's going to, but I'm going to just like outline it now. This is the creature right here. You are looking directly at it. It's not like it's dormant waiting for prey to show up, but like, yeah, this is the main body of the creature right there. So just Just beware when it starts to move.
Die, this bacteria death, this growth found them and on the wall. This being 16. However, this image has seen a lot of proliferation in homes as just being a classic Americana piece of art. The significance of it to the space doesn't seem that important. However, it's strange that it's even here. I mean, everything we've seen up until this point is bare. It's just the bones of the structure, none of the details. So then why would this painting be here, now covered in the same growth that covers everything else? Well, before she has time to ask that, this happens.
Yeah, like right there, it's just instantly moving. Oh man, and it also gets up on her real quick.
One of the life forms that chased the cameraman in the first found footage springs to life from the growth. It mimics a human scream as it follows her out of the house and into the rest of the complex. At one point, she peeks her camera around the corner to see it standing right there, charging at her. She runs, and as she does, the green flashing she saw hints of earlier grows larger. She runs and runs back the way she came, the thing screaming right on her tail. With no other option, she goes in the direction of what she hasn't explored yet, the hole in the floor. She drops through to a tiled room lit by a lamp on the floor. One of the walls is busted through, and she follows, stepping down into another tiled area. Again, this one being lit by a bright green. The thing still behind her, she keeps running. She comes to one space that, again, feels reminiscent of something human, an indoor pool. I mean, the tiles are there, the water's there, and the silver handles are there, but none of them are shaped right. The handlebars lead to nothing. The pool is segmented in these odd cuts. It's familiar with something humanity would know, but with none of the specifics. She finds a ladder, comes...
I'm curious if any of that water is drinkable. Because it's so still, it's like glassy. I'm just curious, like, would this be colonized by whatever bacteria is, or well, actually, I don't know. Would this water be chlorinated? It's interesting. I don't know.
Tiles are there in the floor glowing green. She's familiar with something humanity would know, but with none of the specifics. She finds a ladder, comes across more holes in the floor glowing green.
Oh yeah, and what the fuck was down that hole?
Humanity would know, but with none of the specifics. She finds a ladder.
This shit right there. What on earth is down there? This little segment has always bothered me because it just looks so freaky. Like, is that another bacteria colony, I wonder? Like, we never get an answer.
Green. She's eventually stopped by a large
guess it doesn't
chasm.
matter.
The type of structure she's in is separated from the rest of the complex by a gap. She jumps over it and keeps running by a large chasm, but with none of the specifics. She finds a ladder, comes across more holes in the floor.
We don't get that.
Green. She's eventually...
Ah, damn it. We didn't mention that, or we didn't, like, focus on it too well. In found footage 2, it's like right here. Stop. It's like right here. There is a noticeable hole in the whatever the hell. The corridor is separated. It's like there are different lobes or sectors, I guess, where you have visible disconnection that shows you, hey, you're going from one area to another. These newer areas are not yet fully joined or finished, meaning they might be more prone to those green lights like what you're about to see.
Stopped by a large chasm. The type of structure she's in is separated from the rest of the complex by a gap. She jumps over it and keeps running, eventually coming to a dead end. She hears the thing stalking the halls behind her. All she can do is pray it doesn't decide to turn in here. But as she sobs and waits for this nightmare to be over, this happens.
And yeah, you can see that section of wall begin to pull back.
In the final moments of the video, we see that everything we just watched is being viewed by someone on their television. So there's a couple things to point out in that final moment. Obviously, we have this green lightning that seems to consume everything. It cracks through the walls like a fissure and seems to spread everywhere, like glass breaking. We've seen that green glow a few times in this video, from in the floor beneath her to the hue shining down in the tile room. The green's got more and more intense as she's continued, culminating here. This green lightning seems similar to some kind of energy, the way it cracks and spreads, but the pattern of it is also reminiscent of the way we've seen the mold or bacteria grow on walls up until this point. That connection could be nothing, but it's worth pointing out. Another thing that happens right before the green appears in this final moment is the room she's in begins to change. If you look at the doorway she came in right before the green flashes, you can see the doorway itself gets bigger. The wall to her right slowly recedes as the flash begins to appear. It seems that with this energy itself, the complex began to change. Before the space she's in seemingly turns to nothing. We don't have a lot of information about what this
I really want to know what happened to her.
But we might later. For all we know now, it seems that this is another tragic tale of someone lost in the backrooms who became a victim to it. Now, in the description for found footage 2, there's another unlisted video. This unlisted video is titled home_27647.mov. And for the most part, this just seems to be someone's family home video. It starts normal with the cameraman walking down a street and then showing shots of a scenic walk by the beach. Until overlaid on the footage, we get, and I'm not kidding, what seems to be a Ptolemaic geocentric map of the solar system. An ancient map structured around the old belief that the Earth is the center of the solar system, as opposed to our current heliocentric understanding that the sun is the center of it. But one of these ancient maps with Latin writing shows up in the midst of this family home video. This is why trying to nail down anything Kane's doing is a headache and a tumor. Because you're just watching an unlisted home family video, and then it's like, oh, do you know who Ptolemy or Copernicus is? You better. Ignoring that for now, we get more shots of streets.
What other crazy stuff is he going to
looking on top of skyscrapers? Until we get the shot of a young boy sitting at a table, seemingly with his mom or dad.
That's Kane, by the way.
If we look at the room around them, this is the same layout we just saw
it's the same
house.
house.
Too. Same door, the same banister.
That's
the same
probably
walls,
Kane and his father.
Now, again, because Kane said that that was a layout of his real house, and this is people in his real house, I can assume that this is pictures of his family, hence why he blurred them out. That may even be little Kane there. Oh, look how cute he
That's
is.
young Kane,
but within the
possibly.
story, this seems to be home videos of the people who lived in the house that we saw copied within the complex. We see footage of the sun setting over the ocean. After this, we see a rendered out-of-place shot for a family home video of what appears to be dusty cobwebs, before finally we're treated to one last image. A family sitting around the piano, the mother smiling for the camera, before the camera pushes past them to see that same painting we saw on the wall in found footage 2 hanging up in this house. Now, like I said, the painting itself doesn't seem to be important. At least, I don't think it is. But what I do think is important is that it exists. If what we're watching is a home video of the people who lived in the house that we saw imprinted into the complex, then it seems that painting on the wall was imprinted too. I mean, here if we look at the layout of the rooms, it even seems to match the structure of the room that the girl walked through and found footage 2. If they were overlaid on each other, then to the left of the painting would be where that bacterial growth was. The room with the piano in it is the room that she glanced at but didn't walk into. So the house was copied, and for some reason, so was that painting. Of course, it all leads back to the biggest question at the base of this: why? Was this done on purpose? Is the complex just grabbing references from across the world to build itself? It'll pick houses and spaces at random, taking some details but leaving most? Or is there a significance to this? Is there a significance to the fact that we're watching a family home video and a painting in the back of it made its way into the Backrooms? These are all questions to keep in mind as we move into our next video, Reunion. Okay, the next video that was uploaded in order is I Remember, but I'm saving I Remember for dramatic effect later.
We think I Remember is the final entry in the series, like chronologically, but it's so hard to know right now.
So we're going to pretend like the next upload is Reunion. Reunion takes place on May 25th of 1990.
You wish you had this much talent for anything? Damn, dude. Like, it's all a matter of working for it.
This
Don't
sets
worry
about
about
2 weeks after the Department of Energy's visit and the researcher showing back up in the threshold after missing for 2 months. The opening shots show us the hillside of Southern California. Interesting enough,
Yeah,
the
an original
async
thought
researchers
once.
is taking notes outside. Perhaps async is interested in how their experiments
I had fun once. I hated it.
are affecting the land around them. We see a coffee mug in Async's lab that says on it MLML with attached coordinates.
Oh,
this
yeah,
is the
that's
logo and correct coordinates of the
that's
San
a-
Jose
that's a
University's Moss Landing Marine Laboratories.
Yeah.
It seems one of the researchers worked there for a while or attended a conference or something to get this coffee mug. Its attachment to the rest of the narrative is on October 17th.
It's not that special. The mug and the Moss Landing Marine Laboratory is very little to do with anything. I think that's a red herring. We'll see, because we just don't know enough yet. But like, I don't think that's something important enough to really focus on. Like, it's too obvious. It's directly in frame. Like, this mug is like he wants you to see this, which tells me he wants you to see it, probably for the sunset motif, because I was going to say earlier, the sunsetting motif is extremely important. But like, I don't think there's anything special that's going to actually happen at the Moss Landing Marine Laboratories. I don't think anybody has anything to do with it, or anything that has happened there has anything to do with this place. It's probably a misdirection, but we'll see for sure.
19th, 1989 in the real world,
Eventually.
MLML was devastated by the Loma Prieta earthquake. This should sound familiar because October 17th.
Makes you excited for the
1989
movies.
is
I
when
know.
first
I
contact
wanna
took
see it
place.
too.
So one of the researchers seems to have been at a laboratory that
I
was
want it
heavily
now.
damaged when Async made their way into the complex. From here, we switch to business as usual. Once again, Marvin, the cameraman from Pitfalls, is with a group of Async researchers exploring the complex. It seems that in the weeks after that researcher's return, they've restarted investigation. After disassembling the wooden barricade, they deploy a rover to check out the complex in front of them. It seems that
We got to do this again before the movie. No, we got to do this again after the movie. This is your before the movie.
they're being more cautious after discovering there are things in here. As they're piloting the rover forward, they remark on someone not understanding the situation. This could be in reference to another researcher or their superior, Ivan Beck. Eventually, the rover makes it to the room from Pitfalls, which we learn Async refers to as room 14D. The team makes their way to the room from Pitfalls, and as they begin to talk about how to move forward, by zooming in on the camera, Marvin notes that
14D as in, damn, those holes are deep.
the spot he fell through earlier seems to not have a standard floor like the other spaces, but instead has a gap. The ledge he walked on seems to be more of a shelf. Perhaps this is the reason for his fall.
That is the reason for his fall. It's very obvious. It's a wonder that thing didn't break with him standing on it to begin with. Because, like, I hate to do this, but I'm in a curious mood, so I want to See here, hold on. Let me swap over to a screen so that I can Google freely. Let's see here. What is the standard weight of a hazmat suit? How much do these things weigh? 11 to 12 ounces for a lightweight one. A medium weight suit will only be about a pound. Heavy duty suits can weigh as many as 10 pounds. And special CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear suits can be quite heavy to account for the protection needed against agents like mustard gas. Now, I think we can pretty safely assume the hazmats that Async is using is not a CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear suit, but they're heavy duty. They're very heavy duty. So they're weighing as much as 10 pounds in addition to Marvin's base, body weight. And Marvin's probably not, he's not overweight, but like he's not, he's an average, probably 150, 160 pounds. I don't know, maybe that's too liberal. I don't know. Point is, Marvin weighs probably nearly 200 pounds. I'd say 150 at the lightest, 200 at the heaviest, given the gear he was working with and just natural sort of stuff. Because, like, I'm an average guy. I'm about 145, 150 pounds. Like, I don't look it, but I am. If Marvin's anywhere near my build and height, yeah, he could easily be 160, 170 pounds. And that fuck-ass shelf ain't gonna support that much weight. That's a thin piece of wood. Like, that's pathetic. That will snap. So it's not a wonder he had to correct his position, and then he inadvertently tumbled over the side.
Other Async members show up with plywood and metal plates to create a walkway over the pits so that the situation
What's my height? I'm 6 foot.
with Marvin doesn't happen again. We're then told through text that while Team A assembles a walkway across room 14D, Mark Bloom, Randall Tatchy, and Marvin Lee conduct an initial layout analysis of room 14C. 14C is a room we haven't seen yet, but given the titling, we can assume it's nearby. Mark's believed to be the team leader, and most agree that he was the person asking for the camera after Marvin fell into the pit in Pit Falls. So it seems a lot of these Async Endeavor clips have been with the same group of people. To travel into 14C, Mark opens up the case he brought with him, revealing a shotgun. Specifically, it's a Remington 870 with Magpul furniture. That will matter to someone else out there, I'm sure. Marvin asks if this is like the one he's trained with, telling
Gun nerds
us
will
that,
care.
again, after Async figured out there was life in the complex.
Why is every Minecrafter over 6 foot? You expect me to ask or answer that question? Like, you expect me to understand why that's a thing?
They began arming these their lead researchers with weapons training. A lot of the banter between the researchers feels natural, like Mark remarking that he can't tell the difference between this gun and the gun he trained with, or Marvin saying he wouldn't want to be on the other end of that.
I wouldn't want to be on the other end of a gun. You wouldn't want to be on the end of any gun, Marvin.
Want to be on the end of any gun. It's almost bizarre how
So
casually
stupid.
they approach the hard to comprehend space they're in. I mean, it's a structure made without human hands that clearly takes human influence. It's terrifying. But if you give a group of guys a gun, they will inevitably reset to factory settings. As they continue into 14C, it's different from the rest of the complex in that there are no lights above, and the walls here appear in a basic off-white pattern, remarking that it looks like concrete covered in epoxy. They progress through this room until they get to another room that has white drywall. The floor in this next room is different too, but they remark that between the two kinds of floor, there is a very small gap. The gap's far too small to fall into, but there's no way of telling how deep it is. We've seen this a few times now, that between two different kinds of space in the back rooms, there's a gap sometimes.
Yeah, two different spaces have a gap in it. That's an important running theme. Also, imagine dropping your keys in there.
It's minuscule, sometimes huge. It's like one type of room is being replicated up until it meets another type, and although sometimes it gets close, they don't always mesh together. You can see the clear border between one space and another for whatever reason. Here they note that a lot of the ceiling tiles seem to have been displaced. It doesn't seem natural, and instead seems like something has moved them on purpose. While walking through this area, Randall finds something strange. Someone has drawn a map of the space they're in. They've spent some time navigating this dark area to put together an atlas of where they are and where they've been. Mark tries to call this in to the rest of the team. The signal can't reach them, so they begin to backtrack so that they can call this in. And as they're walking back, this happens.
Pow!
Well, if we do get back in the same system, I'm not sure you just come back around. You're honestly
That was like the best kind of jump scare back when this first aired. Anyway, so you can see whoever this is like wearing all black, which is really weird. Like, why was Peter wearing basically all black? Although these look like regular. Actually, maybe he's wearing a suit. It's so hard to tell, but I think this might be your standard, nice business suit. These are slacks, and they're dark gray, which is common for, most business suits. This is a jacket of some kind. I will say that it's mostly just for the benefit of not having, uncanny looking models, because we do see a few researchers and they do not, because they're 3D models too, and they do not look convincing, but that's how it is. It's hard to make convincing 3D models. It really is. Take it from someone who's been doing nothing but learning 3D modeling for the last several months. It's hard. But yeah, like, damn, he really did just jump out of nowhere and tackle poor Mark? It was Mark. Or was it George? I don't remember.
Someone, not in an async uniform, tackles Mark and takes his gun.
It
Holding
was
the team
Mark.
at gunpoint, he says he doesn't want to hurt anyone. He just wants his questions answered, and then he'll leave. As he asked how many people are out here, Marvin recognizes him.
Looks like overalls. It could be, but it's so hard to tell. He's dripped out. I mean, yeah, if you're going to spend a few days in the backrooms, you may as well be dripped out, right? Bacteria monsters backrooms attempt to copy a human. You're thinking, Stone. You're thinking.
How many people are out here right now?
Your noggin's a jogging.
Down the hall. How many people are out here?
Peter?
How many people are here?
Marvin?
Marvin, is that you?
Is it really you?
The funniest thing is that you can tell when a character is being voiced by Kane, and Kane voices so many characters in this series.
It's me. It's me.
How? It's been months. We thought you...
I know. That's what they did. They took my life from me, Marv. Everyone thinks I'm
That's what they did. They took your life from him.
fucking dead.
They took my movie from me.
Think I'm dead.
Peter was the researcher who went missing all the way back in informational video, and then showed up 2 months later not realizing any time had passed in presentation. Like I said, this video takes place about 2 weeks after presentation. So Peter goes through the time skip, shows back up on May 8th. And then a couple weeks later, here on May 25th, he's suddenly in the complex, freaking out. But when Marvin sees Peter, he remarks that it's been months.
Yeah, there's some in between him resurfacing during the presentation and then now. It's been 2 weeks. Well, he spent the majority of that time in a sort of safe house, kind of, in async. I don't know if Wendy here is going to say anything about that. But he was being fed and taken care of. They were attempting to rehabilitate him, we think. But we'll see.
Meaning Marvin thought Peter was dead, seemingly not knowing that he showed back up only a couple weeks ago. Something's going on here, and Peter's scared for some reason. Peter continues and says that his wife and kids think he's dead. Async has done something to make it seem Peter
And they
has
had
died.
a funeral.
And it seems this trick even worked on the rest of their researchers.
Well, they lied
Now,
to them.
the
I
dead
mean,
man's holding a shotgun in front of them.
lying's a pretty convincing trick some of the times, A lot of people have the uncanny ability to lie with such ability, or such convincing, power that they make you think it's real.
Just tell me. Did they hold a funeral?
Yes.
Did they hold a funeral? Yes.
Yes, 18, this is Mark. I read you.
Mark, don't.
What are you doing?
We need immediate rescue. Room 14C. The team and I are being held at gunpoint.
Mark begins to radio for help and panic when Peter fires. A subtle detail that I really like is the complex has these interior walls that repeat seemingly without end. So when Peter fires the shotgun, there's no reprieve for it. The sound echoes over and over.
Oh,
and
yeah,
over
that
and
echo
over.
was something.
Marvin runs to help Mark, who's been shot in his side. He's breathing but seems near death. And with that, our video ends. So Peter, the missing researcher from informational video, is now back from the dead and mad about what Async has done to him. He talks and fights like a caged animal, afraid he'll never be let out. But now he has a gun and he's on the run. We get some hints as to what Async has done to him through an unlisted video in the description titled Recording 14. Recording 14 is dated to May 8th, 1990, the day that Peter showed back up in the threshold. This video is of a phone call made from Async in San Jose, California to a venue where Ivan Beck is staying. Again, this is in the aftermath of Peter's discovery, so whoever was at Async panicked and called Ivan. The caller identifying themselves as Clyde. Kane has confirmed that Clyde is the long-haired researcher we've seen a couple of times now. In report, he was the scientist who watched Marvin's initial footage from Pitfalls and became terrified by the life form in the complex. And at the beginning of Reunion, he was the researcher we saw outside.
Yeah,
taking
that
notes.
asshole.
Which also, fun fact, Clyde is played by Kane's real father.
Oh,
I don't think
really?
He's voice acting as Kane's dad, but according to Kane, the live-action actor is his dad. So Clyde was the researcher who saw Peter that day in the complex and then called Ivan. As Clyde explains the situation to Ivan, we don't hear Ivan's side of it, but he seems relatively disinterested, instead acting about how the DOE's visit went, if all the contracts are in order. But it is until Clyde mentions that the researcher they found in the threshold said his name was Peter Tinch. We don't hear Ivan's side of the conversation, but he seems alarmed. He begins asking who else is there. Has anyone else heard of this? Before Clyde remarks that, as far as he knows, he's the only one aware of this incident. Before Ivan asks something, and Clyde says, "This isn't him, is it?" So it seems that after Peter went missing, the narrative everyone else was told is that Peter died. And we know this from the visual we see in this episode. It's a reversed image of a newspaper. But
Yeah,
if we
they faked
flip the
his
image,
death.
The headline says, "Fiery
Truly
wreck
terrible.
beside vineyard leaves one dead." See, the world doesn't know about Async or the complex yet. They have plans to introduce it to the world, but for now, it's beyond top secret. There's only a few people and even the government, like the DOE, who know of its existence. So if a researcher dies or disappears in the complex, they can't say that's what happened. there has to be a cover story. So after Peter went missing, they fabricated a story that Peter died in a car wreck. This is enough of an explanation to have a fake body or an empty casket at a closed casket funeral. So as you could imagine, when Peter shows back up, that complicates
disastrous.
things. See, Async can't just say that Peter went missing, because then that raises a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Like, how did he go missing?
Where?
Didn't he work at a laboratory? But had
Who works in a, well, I mean, now recently we're in a weird situation ourselves because a bunch of scientists have gone missing, you know, and it's kind of making headlines because scientists are like the least sort of dangerous job you could reasonably do, because most scientist related things are just calculations basically. And so, like, yeah, what do you mean he went missing? Didn't he work in an office? Like, who works in an office and goes missing?
Had they done that, it would have been more explainable when Peter showed back up. But now they've already put together this whole conspiracy. There's a fake grave and a fake body. So now, explaining how he turned back up is a lot more difficult. And it seems that this facade that Peter's dead worked on most of the members of Async, as Mark and Marvin are surprised to find Peter alive in room 14C. And it's likely that only top figures at Async, like Clyde and Ivan, knew that he was still alive. But now, Peter has a gun, and he's scared. I also want to mention this detail because it's really weird. So remember how there was that ML coffee mug with the coordinates at the beginning of Reunion? Well, that logo with the coordinates is the ML logo, or at least it was at some point. Well, when you type in those coordinates to Google Earth, it doesn't take you directly to ML's current location. Instead, it takes you to a vineyard just south of San Jose. Looking up ML's actual logo, those seem to be the coordinates they used, and the two locations are certainly near each other just south of San Jose, but it seems pretty coincidental that the newspaper says there was a wreck at a vineyard, and when you type in the coordinates from the coffee mug, it takes you to a vineyard.
Okay, now that's being clever. But, like, that's still not, I don't think the the Moss Landing Marine Laboratory is going to be any more relevant than this. I think that's more just a way to illustrate to the more attentive members of the audience, hey, this is a thing. Hey, you know, you should check this out.
I don't know if that has stunning lore implications or not. Maybe Kane just typed in the coordinates and found a vineyard nearby and decided to place his wreck there.
Yeah,
perhaps it's implying that the
probably.
researcher who worked there knew it would be an appropriate location to fake a death. Just too weird of a coincidence to not point out. Before we continue with Peter's story, we take a brief aside to an episode called Overflow. Overflow doesn't give us a date in the description, but we'll soon find out that this is the earliest event on our timeline. It opens with shots of a night sky and a quiet park. A voice on a radio indicates that this is during the height of the Cold War, and an ad shows us that cassette tapes were all the rage. In some laboratory, an experiment begins to go awry. A light indicator for overload begins to flash. On a wall, we see a piece of paper describing the specifics of an experiment, going over approved changes in the experiment itself. The experiment was signed off by an advisor named Ivan Beck on August 2nd of 1972. And as we see this piece of paper, a green glow begins to illuminate the room. The light becomes blinding until we are then shown the night sky from the beginning, but this time, it's changing. The structure of the sky itself folding in on itself and spiraling about. Whatever these experiments are, it's changed the world around it. So like I said, this is the earliest event we have on the timeline. All the way back in 1972, Ivan Beck was taking part in these experiments. And we see that signature green glow that we've seen a couple times up until now, especially as seen in found footage too. The green certainly indicates something. It indicates some change. And it seems that whatever happened in 1972 has led to all of the events that we're seeing now. Whatever this was, it changed the sky and the world around it forever. But whatever all of this is, Ivan Beck was there from the start. After that, our next video is Damage Control, which takes us back to what's happening with Peter Tinch. Damage Control takes place on May 26th of 1990, one day after the events of Reunion. We open listening to an audio recording of the team's panic calls from the end of Reunion, right before Mark was shot. We see the other team's reaction when they heard the gunshot and began to panic. From security cameras, we can see Peter made his way all the way back to the threshold, now armed with a gun.
See,
panicked.
You can see him in a little bit better of a light here. I think he, also these poor CGI, fucking obviously fake employees. Anyway, yeah, I think he was wearing a suit.
Pointing at
It's hard to say for sure, but from this angle, given how much brighter this footage is, it seems very suit-like.
His way back into Async's compound. He runs through the halls being chased by Async members and manages to make it all the way to the elevator. Before he can be stopped, he's on his way to the rest of the world. We then switch to the perspective of an Async leader, potentially someone like Clyde, giving a presentation to Async team members. It seems that in the fiasco of Peter's escape, several people have stayed there all night trying to understand what's going on. So now this researcher is updating everyone on what just happened. So now, speaking on the behalf of Async, he claims that the company will be honest and tell everyone what's occurred. The researcher says that on the morning of March the 1st, 4 researchers were sent into the complex for a layout analysis. We know this to be the events of informational video when Peter went missing. It's also worth noting that in the description for that video...
Okay, guys, we've been lying to you, but we swear, extra, you know, pinky promise, swear, cross my heart and hope to stick a needle in my eye that we'll be telling you the truth from now on.
As I mentioned earlier, it said that it occurred
totally
on
real.
February 29th, a date that doesn't exist. And here, this lead researcher is saying that it was March the 1st. So why the discrepancy? I don't know why there's a discrepancy. I'm asking you. I'm as clueless as all of us. The team consisted of George Levy...
Okay, I gotta let Ellie in. She's being a whiny bitch again. Okay, I'm back. Okay. But anyway. Oh, I do wonder, though, if that question, as I have conjectured, if that will be answered in the movie or not. I'm guessing, but I'm hoping it will be pretty definitively put to bed.
Marvin Lay, Ronald McCarthy, and
Put
Peter
the cat
Kitch.
in the
So
back
in
rooms.
Reunion, Mark and Randall were relatively new members, but Marvin and Peter
That's a bit
went on
much.
these searches together, explaining why Marvin recognized Peter in Reunion. The researcher recounts what we know, that Peter went missing, and that Async obviously couldn't say what actually happened, so they fabricated the car wreck story. Which, to be clear, everyone in Async knew that the car wreck was a farce. They all keep the existence of the company and the complex hush-hush, so they went along with that narrative. They just didn't know that Peter was found 2 months later. But here, this researcher giving the presentation comes clean and says that on May 8th at approximately 5:30 p.m., Peter showed up at the front door of the complex. From here, Peter was placed in a secure room, where doctors began performing tests on him to see what had happened. He seemed perfectly healthy, but according to this researcher, his mind was beginning to snap. Async recovered Peter's camera and says that it will be available for viewing later today. This explains why the footage from Peter's POV was titled Informational Video, because it's an informational video that was established for Async to review. Upon seeing the clip of Peter skipping forward in time, the room begins to talk to itself. As the researcher clarifies, this seems to be the moment that he jumped 2 months into the future. Clarifying that for Peter, it was a little over 30 minutes before he found his way back to the threshold. The researcher says that at first Peter was understanding of the situation. Async and the complex
Very
must keep
lucky he
secret
was
and there
only
the
lost
issue
for
of his
30
fake
minutes.
death. So he agreed to remain in hiding while they worked out a solution. But of course, Peter doesn't want to remain in hiding forever. He has a wife and family. And after a couple weeks, Peter began to grow restless. He began to make these bizarre drawings on the walls of his room. Walls that showed crowds of people gathering around doors. The date of May 17th, 1990, scrawled in the bottom right. Several
I've
people
not
and
seen
interactions with
these.
their faces marked out. The researcher says that Peter deluded himself into believing he was still inside of the complex. That all of this around him was part of some great illusion. The complex was trying to convince him that he was out, although he was still in. And Peter began to be convinced that the Async researchers, as part of this illusion, were going to harm him. The researcher says that on May 22nd, they were going to move Peter to an above-ground facility so that he could be above ground and experience sunlight and air to, not go crazy, and that during this transfer, Peter ran away. Stealing credentials, he forced his way back into the complex and remained in hiding for 2 days until he eventually attacked Mark and Marvin, as we saw, stealing the shotgun and running back into the threshold. The lead researcher mentions that Peter was convinced he could escape through an alternate threshold. Now, why would Peter believe there's alternate thresholds? Why would he think there's another doorway somewhere in the complex? Perhaps it's simply because he thought the researchers were a part of the illusion, so the real threshold has to be somewhere, or Peter thinks there's other gateways. At one point, Dr. Kirk Maxwell wrestled with Peter and managed to take the gun from him, so now Peter, while unarmed, still continues to run through the complex, as we saw, making it to the elevator. Peter made it to the main floor of Async, but because of the odd hours, no one saw him as he escaped out the door and ran to the hillside. On the hillside, according to the lead researcher, Peter died from falling and hitting his head on a rock. So Peter, who survived the Backrooms twice now, made a run over the hill, fell onto a rock, and is now dead, which is super convenient for Async, because now the guy that they were going to have to figure out how to unfake his death is now dead, so you can just stick with the first fake death. The lead researcher remarks on the tragedy of this situation and remarks how great of a mind Peter once was.
Convenient.
We see some more
It's
of
very
Peter's drawings,
convenient.
one of which shows a man standing by the seaside with text that reads, "If the wind is right, you can sail away." The researcher remarks that Peter gave his all to this project, and that if he was in his right mind, he would not want them to delay it on his behalf. The research must go on.
Now, there is one small twist here. And this will probably be
Fell on how to unfix how great of
the last twist for a while. We'll
mind
probably
Peter
have to
once.
continue this tomorrow. But it's either this drawing or it's one of these drawings. I think it's this drawing. This one right here.
actions with their faces marked out.
Not
The
that one. This one. Yeah, it is this one. 5/17/1990. This is the same date as Clark, the furniture store owner. Let me just try and find it. Is Clark. No, Backrooms, ARG. No, Backrooms movie commercial? Guess that would be a way to put it. There we go. This movie right here.
Well, ahoy there, mateys! Now, according to me map, we've landed on the crystal shores of a bountiful land. A land filled with great deals. Meet bed bumps for the scallywags' quarters.
I love
We've got
the-
it all, and at
I
prices
love the
so
trappings
low,
of this.
you'll think that you're robbing me. Come visit Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, and the only thing you'll be wanting is more space to keep it all.
Now, supposedly, this is a commercial airing on the 17th. Same day May the 17th, 1990. So that commercial is somehow relevant to this picture that Peter made while he was going stir crazy. So I don't know. It's an odd sort of coincidence. And it looks like Wendy is about to mention Peter may have, in fact, escaped. We think he did.
Or is now dead, which is super convenient for Async because now the guy that they were going to have to figure out
they don't have
how
to
unfake
worry
his
about
death
unkilling
is now
him.
dead, so you can just stick with the first fake death. The lead researcher remarks on the tragedy of the situation and remarks how great of a mind Peter once was. We see some more of Peter's drawings, one of which shows a man standing by the seaside.
The wind
Text
is
that
right,
reads,
you can sail
the wind
away.
is right, you can sail away. The researcher remarks that Peter gave his all
Wonderful
to this project,
song by,
and that if he was in his right
Christopher
mind,
Cross, by
he
the
would
way.
not want them to delay it on his behalf. The research must go on. We see the threshold fade into an image of the sun setting. But right as the researcher's narration ends, we're treated to a few odd
another
images.
setting sun
One is a
motif.
used needle of something lying on the ground, before we see, in glimpses, an image of someone in a buttoned shirt standing in front of a massive green ball of energy. This is surely someone interacting with the complex, or at least the energy that flows out of it. We see an image of 3 people gathered around a table, their faces in grief, perhaps adhering to the situation, a desk covered in TV monitors and papers and artifacts, the same image of the man in front of the green energy, now shaded purple, and then a shot from a security camera on an empty street that
Dun,
zooms
dun,
in on a
dun.
man standing alone. Now, the guy standing in front of energy and the desk I'll talk about later, but I believe this person we see on the security camera at the end is likely Peter. Our final shot of the episode is an empty house with the music playing.
I'm hoping Peter will show up in the movie too. But it's so hard to know for sure. And it may just be that Peter's story is finished and we will never see him in any way, shape, or form again. Who knows? Kane has mentioned that his Backrooms story will take a very, very long time to tell every single part of it. So it may just be too early to really know if Peter will factor back into the story or not.
As the phone hanging on the wall begins to ring. Camera pushes in on the phone when the video ends. So now Async has supposedly told their team members the full story, although I don't believe them.
Supposedly.
Yes, they were truthful about Peter time skipping into the future and then running back into the facility with a gun, but all that stuff about him going mad, I don't think so. They say that Peter was going mad and thought he was still in the complex, so the researchers were going to hurt him because he thought they were a part of the complex, whereas I think Peter did the math and realized what would work best for Async is if Peter just went away. I mean, think about it. The only people before Reunion who knew that Peter was alive was top researchers, and if Peter disappears now, well, that's easy. They can keep the fake cover story to the public, and everyone at Async just thinks that he disappeared into the Backrooms. I do not think that Async leadership just has a kind heart and wanted to place him in an above-ground facility so that he could be happier and see the sunshine. I think they were going to kill him, and Peter figured that out. Now, I think it's possible now that Peter might be dead. He might have hit a rock as he was running away, or in other words, got shot in the head. But
Yeah,
I also
he may
think
have
it's
been
possible that
assassinated.
Peter
That's another
escaped.
thing.
It'd be reckless, but maybe Async leadership lied to the team members because if they find Peter, they're going to kill him. But for now, with things like the security camera image, Peter might be on the run. Perhaps
When we get to the 1 hour mark, we'll
the phone ringing at the end is Peter calling his family, or someone being called to be told that Peter's still out there. But perhaps the one thing we heard that might have been honest is Peter's belief that there were other thresholds. I mean, we know there's other ways to access the complex. People keep falling into the thing. And as we saw in found footage too, there's even reliable points where things can be dropped in over and over. So perhaps Peter became aware of that. Perhaps he knows of a way into the complex that Async doesn't. For now, Peter may or may not be dead, but what we do know is that this is really bad for Async. I mean, what's it mean for them if researchers can just disappear at random? Would you feel confident if you were exploring the Backrooms and knew that if anything went wrong, Async wouldn't have your back? Anything, they'd work to make you go away. That's especially bad for Async leadership if some guy whose death they faked, who now has a grudge against them, is out there in the world somewhere. I like to think Peter's alive. I think a lot of cool stuff can be done with the narrative if Peter's alive, but we don't know yet. Our next Backrooms video was uploaded nearly 2 years later.
And this is where we will stop for tonight. Certainly an interesting premise to think that Peter could become, you know, the silver bullet to try and stop Async. Because if he's actually out there and is actually alive and they didn't successfully do anything to him and he didn't hurt himself and they're just like, yeah, Peter hit his head on a rock, wink. Who knows? I think he'll definitely try to go visit his family again, you know, reunite somehow, some way. There's a lot of open uncertainty. But yeah, for now, this is where we will end. We'll pick up tomorrow. I'm going to try and stream a little earlier. Oh my God, cat, shut up. And yeah, we'll knock the rest of this out tomorrow. We got, what, an hour? Oh God. Yeah, 2.5 at like 1.25 speed. Or sorry, 1.5 speed. We'll probably knock all this out in about 2-ish hours. It's hard to say. At any rate, yes, meow meow. Okay, well, you guys have a great night. I will catch you all tomorrow. Fare thee well, Backrooms traveler. Try not to get lost in the winding maze.